This year's Holy Week homilies will be different, shorter, briefer, more meditative reflections. So different from our usual Sunday sermons. So you may have to work harder to reflect and engage. Palm branches and hosannas. The crowd was immense. The authorities were concerned. The common people showed up in big numbers. The religious leaders were suspicious. Imagine a flagpole, and at the top of the flag is a fluttering banner with the words "Hope" written in bright green letters at the very beginning of Palm Sunday. But then imagine at the end of Palm Sunday, that banner is lowered, a new flag is raised, and it says "Despair" written in blood red letters. Palm Sunday begins with bright sunshine and ends with gray and gloom. Jesus is hailed as the coming King, but then is hated as the condemned Savior. Suffering seemingly without purpose, pain, it seems, with no gain. The whole Jesus movement, this movement of vast potential that people were excited about, and the crowds at the beginning of Palm Sunday were excited about, has now crashed by the roadside fatally. The Christian faith is profoundly realistic about suffering. Every human being in life suffers. And Christian faith does not promise freedom from all suffering in this life. In fact, sometimes we may suffer more because of our Christian faith. But the good news that is secretly being mined under the spiritual caverns of the world on Palm Sunday and throughout all of Holy Week is that God enters into our suffering, your suffering and mine. Whether it's emotional suffering, physical suffering, alienation, whatever kind of suffering it is, Jesus has experienced what it means to suffer as a human being. And through that participation in the human condition, God has opened up for a way for our suffering to be redirected and ultimately for us to be freed from sin and suffering in concrete ways in this life and in all ways in the life to come. You know, we can all find ourselves in the crowd on Palm Sunday. Have you thought about that? In some years and some seasons, we find ourselves as Pilate, rendering the verdict. And in some years, we can find ourselves with the woman, watching, in despair, feeling helpless as our teacher is crucified. Some years, we can find ourselves with one of the male disciples, running away, saving our skin, leaving our teacher behind. And then other seasons of life, we find ourselves as Jesus, betrayed by those close to us, in agony, in torment, condemned, facing death. Where are you in the Passion story this year? Where do you find yourself in the events of Holy Week? Where will you dare to allow yourself to be found in these events? Will you dare to open your mind and your heart to the mystery? Whole libraries have been written about this, the mystery that God, God's self, God's Son, suffered so that you and I might be saved. Suffered so that you and I might be saved. Suffered so that you and I might be saved. And suffering, that you and I might have life, even in the midst of our suffering, even on the worst day of our life. Where are you in the Passion events this Holy Week? Where is our world? Will you let yourself be? In the setbacks and sufferings and in the horrors of Holy Week, in the setbacks and sufferings and the horrors of our own lives, we can trust that Christ suffered so that we might be saved. It was a sacrifice. It was an act of love.